Infinite Spark of Being podcast. My name is Keith Welsh, and in this episode, I'm going to talk to you about the difference between coping skills and practices. But before we get into that, go to theinfinitesparkofbeing.com, click the About button, read a little bit about me, what I have to offer you. If you are interested in having me come and speak, wherever that is, you can reach out through email and we can figure something out. If you're interested in booking one-on-one time with me for any of those things mentioned in that About page, again, you can email me and or just DM me on Instagram. And we'll talk. Also, if you're interested, there is a Patreon/donate button there. If you'd like to just donate money, you can do that through PayPal or Venmo. If you're interested in subscribing to the Patreon, there's a $1 a month subscription, a $5 a month, but then there's the $10 a month tier, which gives you access to the first Wednesday of every month online gathering. We do that at 8 p.m. Eastern on the first Wednesday of every month. November, I believe, is on November 1st. We have done things like meditation, where I've given a teaching and an explanation. We've done spinal breathing and pranayama. The very first one was just the nature of the mind and how it affects our reality. And in November, we're going to be doing mantra recitation and mind protection. Yet another way of training the mind to present the world to us in a different way. There's also the books you can purchase. The third book I thought was done. Turns out it's not. Started going through it and I had so much more to add to it. So that is, again, in the process of being written, rewritten, edited. But there's also the t-shirts, tank tops, things like that. I will be working on some new designs shortly. So we'll have a whole new store there. So a lot of those designs that are up now, if you like them, you're going to want to grab them because they're going away. Okay, so much like the word hope, the term coping skills is something that really, truly grates on me. Well, just to touch on hope really quick so as you understand where I'm coming from. A lot of these words in our culture, we just accept them. And, like, for instance, I used to work with a therapist that would tell me over and over again that hope was a spiritual principle. And I would say, explain that statement to me. And she would go, it just is. So, I don't know what the fuck that even means. But hope, I don't know who coined the phrase, but hope is not a strategy, and I will say coping is not a strategy either. But if you were to ask me to pick you up at the airport at 2 p.m. and you said, hey, do you think you can pick me up at 2 p.m.? And I said, I hope so. That doesn't sound very confident. Everyone listening to this has said, I hope, when they weren't confident. We never say, I hope I can, or I hope this way when we're sure of something. We never say, I'm going to try. If you asked me to pick you up at the airport and I said, I'm going to try. Again, we don't use this terminology when we are going to do something. Language is a cognitive faculty of the mind. Language tells the body how to feel. We use words like, I sure hope so, I will try, or worse. If you ask me to pick you up at the airport and I say, I'm going to do my best, that is a no. So language is important. If you asked me, what is it like to work somewhere or to live with someone or whatever, and I said, well, I'm coping with it, right? I cope with it. I am coping. I am fucking getting by. So a lot of times people that are in pain, they come to you and they want you to give them a coping skill. And like I said in that reel that I put out, I guess it was Monday or something, I will not be giving you a coping skill. I do not want you to cope. I want you to thrive. I want you to be well practiced, not fucking coping, or just dealing with it. Because the thing about these coping skills, and these therapists are all too happy to hand them out, while they're not well practiced themselves in any of it. If you want me to give you some sort of a fucking coping skill, you're not, when the shit hits the fan, you're not going to do it. It's like you're going to revert back to your old behavior. You learning a coping skill or a coping strategy or whatever the fuck terminology they use for it, you're not going to do it. You're going to revert back to old behavior. Why? Because you haven't practiced it. You put it in a toolbox and you said, man, when the shit hits the fan, I'm going to take out this tool. No, you won't. You'll forget you have it. I can't tell you, how many times people say to me, I used to work in residential places, and they say, I'm leaving with a toolbox. And I would just shake my head. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. You're going to forget what's in that toolbox, dude. When we think about a practice, we become well practiced at something to a point where you practice it so much that you can't do it wrong anymore. We see that a lot with athletics or something like that. You practice doing it a certain way, and it's just muscle memory now, right? You just do it. That's how you are. Coping skills, you're going to do it every time you're sad. So next time I'm sad, next time I'm angry, I'm going to do this coping skill. Why? So I can feel better. Okay. So you can feel better. All right. What if we were practicing the whole time so that when the situation arose, it was almost as if we didn't even notice the situation happened? Or better, we had a different perspective of what was happening because we practiced training the mind differently. If you were in athletics or something and, they said, hey, here's some coping skills. Like, no, you practice, you do it day in, day out, so you don't even have to think about it. Because, like I said, when we're in these bad situations and we're in pain and things aren't going well, then we aren't going to do it. And I'll tell you, you're also not going to do it when things are going well, because you don't need to cope, because it's all going great. If it was supposed to be a coping skill, they'd be called spiritual coping I don't know, but it's practices, right? Meditation goes from being something that you do, to a way that you are. You have a meditative way of dealing with the world, meaning that you have practiced creating space between the mind and what you do and what's the stimulus and the response, to where you don't have to think about it. It's just there, and you start to make different decisions and you start to work a little differently. It's like when you hear someone say, I'm so anxious, I should meditate more. Why? Well, so I can feel different. All right. Well, to me, when you treat these things it's like, what can this do for me? And it's a lot like, for instance, the other day, there was a woman that had called me, and it was a potential referral from somebody. You know who you are. This woman just sobbed we must have been on the phone for 45 minutes or an hour. And really, at one point she goes, and she had a history of being an alcoholic. I don't just deal with addicts, by the way. It just seems to be that a lot of people have addiction issues. But she was an alcoholic, and she has a couple years sober, and then she says, my psychiatrist put me on an antidepressant. Now, I'm going to say this real quick. I am not against medication. I'm not against antidepressants. Um, and I mean that because I have, now I have professional liability insurance. I can say whatever I want. But I mean, sometimes you need something to regulate your mood if it's just out of control. But the reality is, I told her, you're not depressed. You're just fucking sad. And you're sad because you've gone through life in the most unskillful way possible. Of course it's a shit show, because she was well practiced at being shitty. So, the practice that you put into these things, like, that's what you get out of it. What are you well practiced at? One of the little phrases I give certain clients is every day, no matter what. Every day, no matter what, I do this, this, and this. All right, are the things that you're doing, are they beneficial? Every day, no matter what, I exercise, I eat right, I meditate, I read, whatever the thing is, I do yoga, I do all these things. Every day, no matter what. Or every day, no matter what, I'm an inconsistent, unreliable, self-pitying pain in the ass. Every day, no matter what. And this person, of course, she wanted coping skills. Now, a lot of the work that I do on trauma has resolved trauma for many, 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 many people in one shot. They weren't expecting that, but it has. But the real benefit of the work that I do with people is, the once a month, twice a month, every other day sometimes, these things, because we start working with behaviors and really working to change things, right? But this person, she just wanted to cope. And she kept saying, cope. I can't cope. I can't cope. And I was like, I don't want you to cope. I want you to thrive. We don't change our experience of life through a one-shot deal or a coping skill. That's like, you're like, oh, I need meditation in my life. I need yoga, hatha yoga in my life. So you sit in meditation once or you do yoga once, and suddenly you're like, no. You develop a practice. And these practices change the way the mind experiences the external world. You don't want to cope, you want to change. Now, maybe you do want to cope, I don't know, fucking go pound some heroin if you want to cope. But if you want to change, then it requires persistent conscious effort. It's not just going to be this one-shot thing with people. I mean, it's like, sure, you can, move trauma around in the brain in an hour or two. Yeah. Your behavior is still shit. Your response to the world is still shit. Your mind is still producing shit. So, I mean, yeah, you can do that. Fuck, why not? But when we want to change our experience, it takes time. I know I've done episodes on chaos magic and mentioned things like the OTO or any of these right-hand path ritual magic organizations. Even in that system, those rituals aren't done quickly and they're not done suddenly. Those of you that are listening to this that consider yourselves, social media witches, I hate to break it to you, but a magical working isn't like you make a trip to Whole Foods and then you throw some shit in a fucking pot. Like it takes time. And the reason being that it is a practice. It is a magical practice. And then you have the things that you're doing day in and day out, like to prepare the body, to prepare the mind. You're fasting, you're doing these things. It is to cleanse and change the way the mind experiences the world. It's not a coping skill. Hatha yoga is not a coping skill. Meditation is not a coping skill. It doesn't allow you to cope. It literally changes your world. It changes the way you receive it. I posted a reel today about the law of attraction. The law of attraction is not about what you attract to you. It is about what you are attracted to. And you are attracted to what you are attracted to because of the mind. The mind has certain attractions and aversions, and that's your karma. And you change that karma through practice, not through coping skills, not through these, the practices. And yes, the language does matter. You can say, oh, well, yoga became my coping skill, meditation became a coping skill. I did it every day, day in, day out, a couple times a day until everything changed. That's a practice. And the language does matter. Because when I say cope, your nervous system knows what that means. And it doesn't feel powerful and it doesn't feel strong. Say it in your head and tell me how that feels. Practice, spiritual practice over coping skills. I hope you can feel the difference in that. I don't know, maybe, you buy a little stress ball and you're okay, and that's your coping skill. I don't know. People consider art a coping skill. It's not a coping skill. Don't denigrate art and spiritual practice by calling them coping skills. You don't want to cope. You want to change. And hopefully through listening to this podcast, it has gotten through to some of you. And I use the word hopefully for a reason. Now, fuck the ones that hopefully. I'd say this. There's many of you that reach out, stay in contact, that this has changed the way you live your life. Those of you that have taken some of these practices to heart, some of you that are the people that I see for one-on-one stuff, and it has changed you. And in changing you, it changed the world around you. You just see things differently now. And that's awesome. And you didn't get there through coping skills. You got there through practicing things differently, changing the way you interact with the world. So, if you want coping skills, you're going to have to go somewhere else. But if you're looking for a change, practices, ways of, altering your experience, then hang out. So that's it. That's the difference in a coping skill and a practice. I'm sure that made sense for many of you. For some of you, I don't know. Go to theinfinitesparkofbeing.com, click about, read about me, find out what my deal is and what I have to offer you. And if you'd like me to come and lecture or speak, reach out through the email there. If you'd like to book some one-on-one time, reach out through the email. Don't forget the $10 a month Patreon tier that is for the first Wednesday of every month online gathering. It's $10 a month. I'm building a curriculum with you guys. You're learning things and, learning to incorporate them into your life. And a lot of you have, even this month with the spinal breathing, and had some great success. So it's good to hear. We have fun. So go to theinfinitesparkofbeing.com, click around, see what's there. And I will talk to you later. I love you. Bye.